Hello, Revere, and welcome to another great show. Today we have a young gentleman. His name is DeMattia. He's from Revere, and he's running for councillor in Ward 6. Arthur, let me say welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Now, do you want me to call you Mr. DeMattia or Arthur?
No, that's my father. You can call me Arthur, it's fine.
Good, thank you. Tell us a little about yourself, because I like to do that before we start.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Revere my entire life. Currently live in North Revere, up in Ward 6. Went to the Wayland School, the old Wayland School, before they knocked it down. And then the Garfield School for middle school, and Revere High. Graduated in 2002.
You graduated in 2002 from Revere High?
Revere High, yep. I was senior class treasurer that year as well. And member of the golf team, which was really cool.
Great.
It was awesome. Could play golf every day in the fall. You know, up in Saugus was our home course. And it was a good time. Then that following fall, I went to University of Massachusetts up in Lowell, where I studied civil engineering. It was civil and structural engineering, kind of a little combination of both. Did that for 2 years. And then I transferred to Wentworth in Boston, which was my father's college as well, and studied architecture. Got a bachelor's degree in architecture at Wentworth.
That's that little, well, I don't want to say little school, but I remember when I saw it, it was little on Huntington Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
How is it today?
It's expanded quite, yeah.
How many students do, if I may ask you, approximately?
Well, in my graduating class, in the architecture program when I was there, was about, I think it was about 2,000 students over the 4 years that were there.
Wow.
Since then, they added a graduate school, 1-year graduate to get your master's, which was a pilot program when I graduated. I ended up taking a few courses at the Boston Architecture College after Wentworth for a little bit. I got out of school at a really bad time. I got out right when the recession hit in 2008. So I started grad school, and then the unemployment for, you know, architecture and building and construction kind of went
slowed down.
Very much so.
Right.
So during that time, I kind of bounced around several jobs, working in anything I could find in the design field. I did window and door design. I did interior architectural molding and some interior design as well. I worked in civil engineering, where I did land surveying and perk tests for septic tanks and stuff like that. And in the hole, you know, in the hot days or the freezing cold days in the winter, you know.
Yep.
You know, and civil was fun because as a young guy, they always gave you the position in which you're either in the middle of the sun in the middle of the field, or in the wintertime you're standing there holding the pole, freezing, you know, the entire time. But it was really interesting, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being outside, but I wanted to get more into design and more using CAD and stuff like that I was trained in. And I eventually got a job working as a mechanical engineer designer.
You mentioned something with me when I was doing this, almost the same work you were doing. Mm-hmm. We did it by hand, the blueprints by hand. Then they went into the CAD system. But you mentioned there's another system out there?
Yeah, there's a system now called, one of many advanced systems now, and it's actually owned by the CAD company, Autodesk. It's called Revit.
Revit?
Revit, yeah, R-E-V-I-T. And this interface is, it's similar to CAD, whereas you design in 2D and, you know, your floor plans all look very similar to you do in CAD. The only difference is when you design in 2D, you're also designing in 3D. So you're not just drawing a 10-foot line for a wall, you're actually drawing a 10-foot line with, you know, 9 feet of height. So essentially, the idea is if you go back and you need to change something, so you need to add a wall, or subtract a wall, or enlarge the property or whatnot, you don't have to redraw your elevations again and redraw your section cuts. It automatically does it for you in 3 dimension.
I like to ask you this from a dummy, because we didn't have this thing when I was around. When we drew on the blueprint, we had to do certain angles, and we had to rotate the drawing, and that took a long time. Mm-hmm. But now you can do on the computer, just rotate it right away?
There's you could use the Revit program to do it, and I use another program called SketchUp, which is a very low-level design program, but it gives you an idea of 3 dimension. And you draw as you would in anything else, you know, and you can actually render it so you have a nice finish. You can actually see what it looks like. And if you really, really want to, you can cut it out and Photoshop it onto the property in which you're going to build the building or the house, and see what it looks like, you know, in the streetscape and whatnot.
Can I ask you, Arthur, if I may, some of the buildings that you've done in Boston that may be outstanding, you know, might be like the Prudential Tower or the First National Bank or the have you ever done something similar?
When I was working in mechanical engineering before I got into the architecture firm I work at now, we did a project. We did the overhaul of the cooling towers and chillers at the Boston City Hall, that was the biggest project we worked on, something like that.
The new Boston City Hall?
I guess you could say new, yeah.
Yeah, the one on Government Center?
The one they're trying to be knocking down for years, you know. But that was a pretty significant project I worked on. It was really cool to see how the inner workings of the building were designed, 50 years ago, and how we're bringing them up to speed in modern times to, keep the building running as long as we can, I guess.
I worked on 2 buildings that were great, and this is about almost 50 years ago. One is the First National Bank down there, South Station.
Yep.
And the other one is the Prudential Tower.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah, and my grandfather, he worked for Coverall, which was a uniform service back in. He was working at GE, and then he was doing it as a second job. And he tells me stories when they were building the Prudential Tower. He had to go and drop off uniforms and stuff, and he remembers going up on the freight elevators, and while it was still under construction, and seeing the tower go up, right before it was finished,
Right. Now you're running for the Ward 6 Council.
Yeah.
What made you do that, if I may ask?
Well,
why did you decide to run?
It was a long time coming. I always was fascinated in politics. When I was back in, obviously in high school when I ran for office and, won in my senior year, I always had a fascination in, helping the people and, representing a city or a cause and, kind of being the person that people can go to get things done. Living in Ward 6 my entire life that I lived in Revere, I felt the people in North Revere were always kind of left out of the circle a little bit. We were always kind of the forgotten part of the city, and even though Ward 6 encompassed North Revere and West Revere and a little bit of Northgate.
When you say North Revere, just exactly.
Remember road construction, where that was?
Yeah.
Years ago? That neck of the woods, which...
That's what they used to be. Is that what the Giannino flower shop used to be?
Further than that, way up past the movie theaters, into the Malden, Saugus kind of line and area.
Okay, that's North Revere.
That's North Revere, yeah. It has significantly grown over, the last 10 years. I mean, when I was a kid, there were there was houses and, a lot of the families were there for a long time, and there weren't many kids. I had my core group of friends that I grew up with, and maybe, we probably represented 5 or 10% of the entire high school, and, at the time. But where I live is actually where the road construction used to be, and one of those apartments up there, and that has significantly been developed. And the paper plans of North Revere for future streets and stuff back into the old farms it's a significant amount of real estate up there, and it's amazing to see how fast that section of Revere grow over the time, and I think that we haven't caught up to how fast that area is growing yet, as other parts of the city as well. But
here's something that's going to interest you. Since you're both an engineer and an architect, they want to build a new high school here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking where to build it. If you were the representative in the city, what spot would you pick to build the new high school if you could?
Well, the city of Revere has very limited to where we can build. It's such a densely populated city. Go back 10, 15 years ago, I would say we could build a high school on the same location as the new school behind it is located. But now we can't because there's a school there. We obviously can't take away from, reducing the size of Revere High as it is, because we need as much, square footage there for the students as possible. In Revere, there are a few locations such as Suffolk Downs. Wonderland is, I think, a key location for a high school.
I have to be honest with you, to most of the councilors that I've spoken here and people who are on the school committee, they think Wonderland is the best place to put the new high school.
The only drawback I see is
the traffic.
The traffic, yes.
Right.
And it's a massive nightmare at some point.
Right.
I don't know. I have to look at the zoning of the city and what's available for property, but Northgate is also a possibility. Back where the Northgate shopping plaza is, maybe if there's land back there or anywhere along Squire Road.
You mean the ones behind, like where the DPW is in that area?
In that area, yeah. I mean, because that gets you off the off-beaten path. It gives you on a main artery of the city to get in and out of. It's essentially kind of centrally located.
You know, traffic is not easy on Squire Road either.
No, it's true. And the city of Revere has grown so much
yeah.
in the years that the infrastructure and these state routes that run through it and whatnot, like the Lynn Way, I mean not the Lynn Way, the Marsh Road.
Right.
I guess you could say 1A going into the Lynn Way.
Right.
Route 60 coming off of Route 1. It's really a bottleneck, and it's a densely populated city with a lot of people. We have prime real estate located so great to Boston, with public transit lines, of either the bus or the train to get right in. I mean, for anyone who works in Boston and doesn't want the city life, living in Revere is a great suburban, essentially neighborhood type community where you can still have your house in your backyard, but be 10 minutes from downtown Boston. It's
I think eventually the only place you're going to be able to build in Revere is up and no more level.
It's true, and you can go so high off the airport, 12, 15 miles away too, but.
Yep. I live right behind where Shaw's used to be.
Okay.
The Shaw's supermarket.
Yeah.
They got a big apartment, building going up there.
Yeah.
With space for people that come in, not family so-called, but people that will come in for a couple of days, a couple of nights.
Okay.
Which, in a way, is good because it doesn't tie up the system too much.
That's another problem I think the city has is the influx of apartments that have been put up over the last few years. When they built the development up in North Revere, where I live, up in where the old Rove site is, they had updated, they built a fire station. They updated the schools during that period of time. All the schools pretty much got a revamp. The only thing that really was hurting was the high school, which hasn't been touched, since, '75 when it opened. But the building of apartments, I think, is not the solution to some of this real estate we have in the city. I think we should focus on stuff like a new high school, maybe hotels, since we are so close to the airport in downtown Boston.
Right. If they're going to build another new school. Now, this one, the one that's existing now, was built in 1975.
I believe so. My father was the first graduating class of that high school.
Let's say 75 for argument's sake. So that's 25 plus 17. That's only 42 years ago.
It's true. But I remember being at the high school, 15.
My high school was over 100 years old when I went to it.
But I honestly think they built things better back in the day than they did, in the 70s and 80s. I mean, there's no reason that a school that is 42 years old should have the significant problems that Revere High has. It's undersized, first of all. That goes without saying. I remember being a student there, and the flooding with the leaky, ceilings in the roof. There was, only air conditioner in the library and in the central classrooms. There was no air conditioner around it. It was a school that was built during a time where, architecture and design were starting to make an advance in schools, and they dropped the ball, essentially. And now we're paying for it 40-something years later, with a school that isn't necessarily, up to par,
I ask people, why they just don't build an addition to the existing school, and they say that the state doesn't think that's feasible, or.
A lot of times, and both and I worked in this field of architecture and development. A lot of times when a school is that far, or a building is that far gone, it would cost more money to update it and bring it up to modern standards sometimes than it would be just knocking it down and building it from scratch.
Right. But when I speak to people like yourself and the people that came on the show, they talk $200 million approximately for a new school, with the state or the federal government combined will put in 80%.
Yep.
That still leaves $40 million that has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Where's it going to come from?
That's a good
The
question.
taxpayer?
Well, yeah, I mean.
Yeah,
it's true. It's a lot of money it's a big bill, essentially,
Right.
But you have to weigh the two, when we look at the budget and where our tax money is going to certain things. There's a new high school for our future children to go to, and the youth of the city. Is it worth the tax money? And I think it is, because I think that school, Revere, is one of the best school systems in the state.
Oh, it is.
We have some of
it's one of the best school systems in the country.
Absolutely.
When you look at the superintendents that we have there, Mr. Dakin, Mrs. Kelly, Carol Ty.
Absolutely. We have a great school community. We have great teachers that teach in these schools. And a lot of these teachers are former students of these schools that wanted to come back and teach. And I remember growing up all through the K through 12 in the Revere school system. I wanted to go to Revere School Systems. I had a choice to go to a different high school. I wanted to go to Revere High School because it's one of the best systems in the state.
I agree with you.
And I think that these teachers and the school committee should have a nice, a building that, represents them properly, And, we did our elementary schools over and we built a few new middle schools. Now I think it's time to, really top it off of a nice high school. That should definitely be on a priority list of things that need to be done in the city.
Right, now I got to ask you this question. What are some of your hobbies?
Hobbies? Oh, I got plenty.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was always been known as the guy who has a lot of, always busy. People laugh at me that I'm always busy, always something to do, which is something I really enjoy, always staying busy and, I love to travel. When I was 19 or 20 years old, I went to my first away Red Sox game in Baltimore. And being an architect student, I was fascinated by stadium design and how and why these stadiums are built the way they are. And after going to Baltimore to see the Sox play, I made it a goal to see every single baseball stadium in the Major League Baseball before I was 30 years old. So instead of going to, the Bahamas on spring break, I jumped in a car and took a road trip to, say...
You went to every stadium?
Went to every stadium. I did it in, it took me 9 years, and I seen actually 33 stadiums. They were building stadiums they were ripping down stadiums I had already seen, and they were building new ones. So I had to go see that stadium again, so...
The only negative thing I could say about the stadiums, and I love sports, I do, I watch it all the time, is the baseball fields are not the same dimensions in every ballpark,
No.
and that gives an advantage to some players over other players, which is not fair, really. Like you could say, I hit 300 home runs when it's 240, but you only hit 120 when it's 360.
That is true. It's really the only sport that doesn't have a set guidelines of how big the stadium is. Now, some of the older ballparks, the reason they're shaped the way they are is because
of the land?
Of the land they had. Fenway, I believe, the land was pretty much given to the owners at the time, and it was a useless piece of property. If you notice, the dimensions is very,
small.
Obscure. It's a very,
only 35,000 people, and you're loaded up.
And the stadium is not even shaped like a proper baseball field. It has all these jags, and they've added over the years and stuff. And a lot of the ballparks, if you look going way back, when a lot of them don't even exist anymore, we just got Wrigley, and basically Wrigley and Fenway are the only ones in the early era of baseball that still exist. Those stadiums all were very interesting, and like you said, if you were a Boston Red Sox player, you really knew how to work that wall in left field for half the games. And someone who comes from New York, they had a small right field, so they know how to work that angle. So you drafted your teams and you picked your players accordingly to how they hit the stadium.
If you're an outfielder and the ball gets by you, you need a GPS system to come back. That's how far you got to run there.
I see what you're saying about the having a set dimension for anything, but when it comes to design and it comes to the uniqueness of ballparks, which I really was fascinated with, was the differences like that, was the reasons they were shaped the way they were, and the parcels of land they were, and what they try to accomplish when they designed them.
But it's not fair to the players, though.
It's true. But I think at the same time, it's fair. It makes managing a little bit more interesting.
Right. The thing I was saying, the ballpark itself, the geometry of the ballpark, the layout, can be different, but the inside dimensions, like football, it's always 100 yards, right?
Yeah, it's true.
The same.
It's true. Yeah.
No matter what stadium you go to, the length of the football field is always the same. The field posts are always 18 feet away, I believe, the same from the goal line.
And it also goes with outfield sizes and like you were saying, the Yankee Stadium, you can get lost back there. And for pitches, some have an advantage pitching in certain ballparks. Their ERA goes a lot higher or lower rather because they're playing in a larger stadium.
That's what I mean. If you're a pitcher in a park with a big outfield, and the guy has plenty of room to catch a fly ball where he might not be a home run in Fenway, the records are different, which isn't fair to the players.
The statistics of baseball are very obscure.
But it's changing, I think.
Well, the newer parks are becoming more, cookie cutter in design. They're more and less
symmetrical with the others.
Essentially, yeah, they're becoming closer. A fun fact about baseball parks: the reason American League ballparks are used to aim a certain way, and National League ballparks used to aim a certain way is because of the sun and what time of the day they played the game. And the reason all the American League ballparks essentially at one time faced the same, home plate faced the same direction as as Fenway does, because it was the way they used to play the games and to have maximum sunlight in the stadium during the time. It was a really unique, interesting way why they tweaked those stadiums the way they did.
I'm going to ask you two questions. Number one, if you had the authority and the power to do something for your Ward 6,
Yep.
what changes, if any, would you make, or you would just, or improvements?
It would be an improvement. I want to be more accessible to the people who live there. I want to be able to have a phone call or an email, a monthly group, quarterly group of people getting together and expressing what their concerns are. The problem is, I feel that if there's an issue, they don't get addressed, and it's difficult to address them. And that's what the city council meetings are for. And that's what you are for as a representative of your ward or of your city as a council at large, is to listen to the people's issues and help them and fix them. And you have a pothole in front of your house, it shouldn't be there forever. You have a water issue. You have a neighbor that's bothering you. You have an abandoned property that's becoming a problem. These are things that can be addressed, and even if you can't fix it in the first try, at least showing that you're making the effort to help this person out, I think goes a long way, and it makes you feel that after all, you are being elected by these people. They're hitting that vote for you on that election day because they believe that you're the person they can go to help any issues in the city in general. And also representing the city, on the council board, you vote for things like a new high school. You vote for things that improve the city as a whole. It's not just Ward 6. It's pretty much the entire city that you have to think about. And, people should have someone that represents them in the proper way, And I would really like to see that happen in Ward 6, and that's what really kind of encouraged me to kind of run this time after years of thinking about it, was because I want to help these people that, families I grew up with, people I know, and, it's...
Talking about families, I like to talk a little about your family.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you were in the military or not.
I was not, no.
But you are a community veteran. In other
Yes.
words, you do work for the community, for the kids, for some of the people. But did you have any family members that were in the military?
I did. My grandfather...
And don't be bashful, mention their name.
Yeah, Arthur, he passed away, 10 years ago. It was my dad's father. He was Arthur Michael DeMattia. He grew up in Medford and then moved into West Revere.
World War I?
World War II, yeah.
World War II?
He was a mechanic for the Air Force, stationed in Sicily during World War II.
Oh.
And he used to love mechanics. He ended up working in GE.
The one on Lynn?
Yep, as a machinist.
Right.
For years before he retired down in Florida. And my other grandfather, he's from Lynn, my mom's dad, Henry. He was in the Navy, and he worked on the, I believe it was called the Tin Can. It was the repair ship for the Navy. And he did a lot of tours. He was on peacetime. He was between Korea and Vietnam during his time there. But he went to the Mediterranean. He went to Cuba. He just welded. That's what he loved doing. And then he got out of the military and went to work for GE and Lynn as well. With my other grandfather, they never knew each other until my parents met. But he was a welder over there. He did the aircraft engines for GE.
Here's a question I like to ask, which I'd never ask any of the ones that were on. Since you're an architect and an engineer, when you went to Revere High,
Yep.
did they have like mechanical drawing there, or
They had a
drafting in
drafting
general?
class. Yeah, they did. And when I was in high school, I thought I was going to go into computers, to believe it or not. So I took a lot of computer-oriented classes, like computer programming and computer technology. There was drafting classes at the high school. I'm sure I'm not familiar with the curriculum at Revere High now, but I'm sure they probably advanced with some CAD, and they probably have some more closer to what we do at work now for designing aids, so.
That's great.
But
So we spoke about the military.
Yep.
Do you have any outside activities that you do with kids or elderly people? Or
I don't. It's community programs like that is something I really want to get into, and I really want to help, doing stuff like that.
It's tough because you work all day.
It is, but
Right.
as a representative, you get the weekends and stuff, I'm really big on animal activism. I have 2 puppies. I love the idea that Revere has dog parks for these dogs to go to run out, and it's a good community area where you get to meet people in your community. We actually had a meet and greet at the dog park in West Revere a couple weeks ago, so people can bring their dogs out and they can meet them. People live in the neighborhood and whatnot. And it's the future of the children of this city. It's unfortunately, and it's not just Revere alone, but it's a lot of Massachusetts has a really bad drug issue.
That new school that they built way out near Casaluci Avenue.
Yep.
Is that Ward 6?
That is Ward 6, Cashel. Yep, St. Mary's Church, Malden Street.
They did a
Washington.
beautiful job there, I have to say that.
Yeah, the New Wayland School, yeah.
Yep, and they got a beautiful playground for the
They
kids.
do.
Sometimes when I drive by and the kids are all there playing, it's nice to watch them.
It is nice, and I wish that when I went to the Wayland School I went to was a little rough. You know, it was built in the 50s, I believe, in the 60s, and it was an addition, but the new one is definitely an advance. I like the only new school I got to go to in Revere was the Garfield, and that opened in '92, and I got there in '96 or '97. And that's the only one I really got to experience. I got these old schools, but these kids in the city are very lucky to, be able to, be educated in these awesome schools they built.
Well, we have great teachers in the city.
We certainly do, absolutely.
That do a fantastic job with the kids.
Yep.
We got 2.5 minutes, so you take 2 minutes and wrap it up. Any way you should talk about anything you'd like.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, Arthur.
No, thank you. And the hardest part about running for office was, or is at this point, I mean, as you know, the election is about a month away.
I forgot to ask you one thing.
Yes.
Are you married?
I am engaged. We're due to get married to my fiancée, Susan, December 15th, 2018. So 14 months from now or so. So we are about to do that. So that's very excited about that.
Are you really?
Yeah. It's just, we met, actually, I was bartending in Revere part-time at the Margaritas on American Legion Highway, and she came in, she was a guest at the hotel.
Did you say you were a bartender?
Yep, I still do it a few nights a week part-time when I can, but.
I have to tell you, I took up drinking. Do you know why?
Why is that?
To forget that I'm an alcoholic. Okay.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
I thought you'd like that.
That's a good one. You said it was a comedy show, so you're right.
But anyway, look at that. We're almost out of time. Take a minute. Wrap it up. Leave me 25 seconds.
Absolutely. I'll be real brief and short. I just want to let the people of the City of Revere know and the people of Ward 6 that I'm here for you to help you whenever you need. If you elect me, I will be there for you to contact any issues you have. It's very important to me to be a firm representative of this city and to be able to accommodate your needs and to vote on important issues that us taxpayers pay tax money for. It wouldn't be, it's one of those things where I want to probably be more involved than I should be, but I think that's an important thing. And, this means a lot to me, so I really want to help represent the city.
Right. I want to say it was an honor and a pleasure to have you come on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I wish you the best of luck, especially in your job.
Thank you.
And running for office, and God bless you.
Thank you very much.
And wish you, like I say, the best of luck, too.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And I want to say thanks to the people of Revere for listening.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to say thank you to all our troops there serving. God bless you and take care of you. And all those military that are retired, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
But most of all, I want to say, God bless America. Thank you for our great country.